Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to stick to Sweden and we're going to have a look at another collaboration beer. So both of the breweries involved in this one have featured on the channel a number of times before. When it comes to the home brewery, I would say that they are very much an up-and-coming brewery, very highly rated and rightly so in my experience. And the beers that I've had from them tend to be different kinds of IPAs and they always tend to be pretty solid, but we have had a couple of dark beers from them too, which have been pretty impressive. The away brewery, on the other hand, are better known for their different kinds of English and German traditional beers, and they are one of the most established names in Swedish craft brewing as well. So to see these guys do a collaboration together is pretty interesting. Now, the particular beer we're having a look at today is one of the home brewery's latest releases through Systembolaget here in Sweden. It's a style that I don't think we've had from them before, but we have had it from the away brewery in this case, and it's also got a little twist to it as well, which is one that I very much enjoy. So, needless to say, I'm very curious to see what this beer is going to have in store for us. Hopefully it's another good beer. Hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for the home side of things then, we are going to head up to Kungsbacka, which is just a little bit to the south of Gothenburg, Göteborg, up there on the Swedish west coast, and we're going to have a look then at another beer from AKiA Brygghus. So this particular beer is called Rättskaffans Rökporter, so Rättskaffans Smoke Porter in English. This one comes in at 7% ABV. It's a smoke porter, as I've just said, and this is brewed in collaboration with Närke Kulturbryggeri, who are from Örebro out to the west of Stockholm. So yeah, this should be pretty damn nice. If memory serves me correctly, this beer was released as part of the Lokalt och Småskaligt assortment through Systembolaget for March or April of 2023, so I have had this one a little while, but considering it's a porter and it's a smoked porter as well, I think it will have held up pretty well actually. But yeah, always nice to return to AKiA for new styles because they always tend to do them pretty solidly, and definitely cool to try one from Närke as well that I've had from them before. I know they can do well. But yeah, let's crack on with this one then and see what it's going to have in store for us. A 7% smoked porter from AKiA and Närke. So, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about both the breweries involved here before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery websites, the link to my other reviews that I've done from AKiA Brygghus and from Närke Kulturbryggeri before, and we will no doubt add more to both of those lists at some point in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated, and remember you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. So just go into the homepage, use the search bar, put your hometown, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever you like in there. If I've reviewed beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that though, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries, and you'll find this one in the Swedish playlist since both breweries are Swedish, but there are playlists there from many other countries as well. But yeah, let's go on to my brewery notes then, and I'll tell you a wee bit about AKiA Brygghus first off then, since they are the home brewery. So, AKiA Brygghus, as I've mentioned to you already, are based in Kungsbacka, a little bit to the Kungsbacka, didn't pronounce that correctly, just a little bit to the south of Gothenburg, Göteborg, up on the Swedish west coast, and this brewery was founded by Christian Figved back in 2016. So he had worked as a lighting technician in the music industry, and this had taken him all across the world. He was actually the sound engineer for Soundtrack of Our Lives, and also worked with Wannadies and Tostrum as well, all of whom are quite famous Swedish acts. But he travelled around for 8 years and then had children, so he decided he needed to stay put in his work life. But he started off working 20% in the brewery, and he brewed with a 300 litre brew kit, but quickly found that this wasn't big enough, and so he upgraded to a 1500 litre brew kit in August of 2017, and this took his brewing capacity up to 40,000 litres of beer per year. But in 2018 he brewed around 10,000 litres, and then he upgraded the brewery again in 2019 to further increase the capacity, and then further again in 2021 with the addition of another 1500 litre brew kit. But Christian also has a history of letting different home brewers brew at the brewery, and they recently hired Victor N to come in to be their brewer so that Christian can focus a little bit more on the business development side of things. But the brewery itself can be found in the old Alfors mill, and the name of the brewery is an abbreviation of the Swedish name for this. I forget exactly what it is. But yeah, AKiA is just a sort of abbreviation, if you like. But as of May 2023, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 70 different kinds of beers. And like I mentioned to you earlier, one of the cool things about AKiA is that they're not scared to try different styles and things. We've had quite a few different types of IPAs from them. I'm sure we've had a couple of Imperial Stouts and things too. And yeah, Christian is a very nice guy. I actually met him at work in the Bishop's Arms in Gustav Adolfs Torg in Malmö one day. He recognised me and started chatting away to me, and I could tell him everything about him, but I just forgot his name. I remember that. But he's a lovely, lovely guy, and if you do get the chance to meet him, I recommend you chat to him. He really is quite knowledgeable and just a really nice dude to talk to, actually. But yeah, that is everything I can really tell you about AKiA Brygghus for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's go on to the away side of things then. So we're going to go over to Örebro for this one. So Närke Kulturbryggeri, as I've mentioned to you already, are based in Örebro, out to the west of Stockholm, and this company was founded back in 2003, which makes them like kind of one of the founding fathers of Swedish craft brewing. I mean, these guys, along with Nynäshamn, who were the very first, and then you've got Oppigårds as well. Like, those three are kind of the trinity of classic Swedish craft brewing, I would say. But the company was founded by Håge Victorson and Berit Karlsson, and Håge Victorson actually had a career as a photographer and an artist before becoming a brewer, whereas Berit is the CEO of the company and is also the chair of the Swedish Independent Brewers Association, the Sverige Oberoende Mikrobryggerier. But yeah, she's a very nice person, actually, Berit. I met her at work again one day, which was really nice, and was chatting to her about the brewery and stuff like this, and also chatted to the brewers too, which was great. But for a long time, this brewery were only producing keg beer, but more recently they started to produce bottles as well, and this actually helped them grow substantially after they bought the former brew kit and bottling machine of Nynäshamn Ångbryggeri when they upgraded their systems. But the brewery currently produce around 100,000 litres of beer per year, and they're particularly famous for the Kagen Stormax Porter, which was rated as the world's best beer for a long time on Rate Beer. But this beer was first produced in 2004 as Stormax Porter, which is it basically means like high power, high strength porter. But then later, when they aged it in bourbon barrels, it became known as the Kagen Stormax Porter. So basically, the barrel high, strong strength, high strength porter, actually, to literally translate it from Swedish. But sadly, Håge died in September of 2020 of cancer, but the brewery has, of course, carried on from there. So the brewers Emil Arvidsson and Jürgen Hjerling are now co-owners, and they run the production side of the brewery, while Berit, of course, focuses on the sales and the business development and all these kind of things. But as of May 2023, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 140 different kinds of beer, according to Untappd, and they will no doubt continue to add more to that as time goes on. But like I said to you earlier, these guys are best known for their different kinds of German and English traditional beers, and they always do those pretty well, actually. I always enjoy a nice Landsort Lager or a Pikla Pils, and yeah, they've got some other interesting things in there as well, which are definitely worth checking out. But yeah, that's everything I can tell you about Närke Kulturbryggeri for the moment. If you want to learn a little bit more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can, of course, check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a wee bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's go on and actually have a taste of this beer and see what it's all about. So just before we do that, I'll let you have a little look at the artwork on this one. As you can see, quite interesting there, a little bit sort of, looks like a kind of the inside of a watch or something like this, actually. So yeah, pretty nice. See, I do quite like that artwork. Plain silver top on the can, of course. You can see the Närke and AKiA symbols on the side of the can there, which are both very nice again. And there you can see Rättskaffans, Rökporter, and then Närke and AKiA. I'm not sure if they say Rättskaffans. Is that like to scaffa? Scaffa something means to like procure, to buy, purchase. It can kind of mean. But then Rätt is like, you know, your rights, I guess you could say. So I'm quite curious as to whether it means just like, you know, the get the justice smoke porter, something like that. It could also be, you know, Närke of course, name a number of their beers after different places around the Örebro area. So it could be the name of a place, actually. I don't really know. That's one of the difficult things with second languages, of course. But yeah, anyway, as we said earlier, it's a 7% smoked porter, this one. It says it's got beech smoke malt and peat malt in this, so this should be quite interesting. A mix of German and Scottish malts, I'm guessing. There's rye malt in there, Caramel 300 and Carafa Special 1 and 2. So yeah, nice little bit of German helping in this one. And it's got Target and East Kent Goldings in it, and a Bavarian lager yeast. So yeah, this should be quite interesting actually. Target is a hop I haven't had too many of over the years. I don't know so much about that one actually, but East Kent Goldings we do know quite well actually. But yeah, let's get this guy out into the glass and see what it's all about. A little bit of carbonation coming out of this one, of course. But yeah, we'll pour the rest of it into the glass and see what it's all about. There we are. Oh, that does look very nice, I have to say. You can smell the nice mix of smoke off this one. As you know, if you've watched the channel for any length of time, I'm a huge fan of smoked beers. My whole love of craft beer began with the Bamberg Rauch beers, namely Schlenkerla, and then of course Spezial and Weyer and other guys came into it a little bit later on. But yeah, anything that's got a bit of smoke in it, I'm very likely to enjoy. But yeah, you can see this beer is poured pretty much as you would expect from any kind of porter beer. It has been sitting for, like I say, 2 or 3 months, but you know, with it being a smoked porter, it's probably going to be okay. It's not such a hoppy forward beer, but even so, the more malt forward beers will last a little bit longer. But you can see when we've poured this beer, it's poured with about 1.5 fingers of a frothy, I would say kind of medium sort of, yeah, I would say a kind of medium sort of medium beige head actually. So some medium sized bubbles on the top there and a few foamier ones going further up. But yeah, it does look very nice. In terms of the colour of this one, as you can see, it's pretty much it's a very dark ebony rosewood colour, this one, pretty much as black as night. 1 or 2 big bubbles sticking toward the side of the glass, a few little ones going up toward the bottom of the head there. But overall, it does look very, very nice, I have to say. Yeah, I do like how this one pieces together actually, it looks good. But yeah, remember the colour of your beer depends on a few things. 1, the type of malts that you use, this goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. 2, length of your wort boil is also going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. But any barrel aging you do or adjuncts you put into the beer will affect the colour as well. Most of the black colour in this one, I would think, would be down to the presence of Carafa, because Carafa, if I remember correctly, that malt type is a trademark of Weiermann in Bamberg, and it always gives you this roasty, well-fired bread crust and then a nice little bit of kind of brown bready character on top. But I think it's the Carafa that's going to give you the black colour in this one. The peated malts and the beech malts and the rye as well and the caramel would give you a more sort of, you know, chestnutty colour. So I think it's the Carafa that's giving you the darkness in this beer for the most part. This one isn't really hazy at all, to be honest with you, but I think it's just the darkness that's giving it its opacity, to be honest with you. But like I say, it does look very nice. You can see the head has calmed down a little bit. That's going to fade away to be a thinner foamy layer, but that's just giving you a nice ring as well around the edge of the glass. But in terms of what you would expect appearance-wise from a porter, there's nothing particularly surprising about this one actually. So yeah, I like how it goes together. It's a thumbs up from me. Yeah, that's that. So I think we can have a wee look at the aroma of this one then and see what it's all about. I'm very curious about this beer for sure. Oh yeah, that smells very, very nice. Yeah, this has got a good level of complexity to it as well. I actually thought, I had it in my head that this beer was an imperial porter, but it's 7%. Yeah, it's a slightly stronger porter, but it's not quite into the imperial strength. But you know, of course, there is a debate about exactly where imperial starts. I would say when you get north of 7.5, actually, or potentially 8. It's kind of around that sort of time. But yeah, this is giving you everything you would expect. You've got the lovely meatiness, the grassiness, you've got everything you would want from this style of beer. One thing I have to admit I am curious about with this one is the fact that they've used a Bavarian lager yeast in this, because of course if you're talking about dark lagers and things like this, the two styles to think about would be the German Schwarzbier and the Czech Tmavé. So this is one of the things, because of course the porter is technically speaking an ale, and the key difference, the technical difference between those is the temperature of fermentation. Of lagers are top fermenting beers. Sorry, that's wrong. Lagers are bottom fermenting beers using bottom fermenting yeast, so they ferment at lower temperatures. Ales are top fermenting beers and use top fermenting yeast, and so they ferment at higher temperatures basically. So yeah, that's it. Next. That just happens in videos sometimes. You say something and you're just like, nope, that's wrong. But there we go. But yeah, we'll just break down the aroma and describe this one for you a wee bit more in depth, should we say. But yeah, so the backbone of this beer, absolutely, you can smell some of that nice carafa type quality coming out of the beer. So the carafa for me is very much like the carafa always gives you this roasty, toasty, dry, well-fired bread crust. On top of that, you do have a little touch of woodiness coming out of the beer, which is nice. Then you can smell the nice kind of rye bread in this one. It's actually quite a dry rye bread, but at the same time, it does have that little touch of oily sweetness to it that you can get. Love a good German rye bread. One thing that I do miss about living there was going to the bakery on the Saturdays or Sundays and just getting some nice bread for the week. It was always really good. Yeah. So for me, that is really nice. On top of that, you have the on top of that kind of rye bread, you do get more of a kind of wholemeal, brown bready character, and within those bready notes, that's when you start to get the smoke. So you can smell the kind of more meaty and woody, smoky character from the Bamberg Rauch malts in here. So I'm guessing when it says beech smoked malts, this will be Bamberg Rauch malt, I would be guessing. So you can certainly smell that in there, the nice kind of meaty character. But on top of that, you do get more of a kind of peaty, grassy and earthy type smoke coming out of the beer, which I also very much like. Yeah, aroma wise, this is pretty damn good actually. Yeah, so for me, the peat malts in this one have a little bit more earthiness and a little bit more grassiness, and they are there, but they're kind of in the top of the nose, and I think they take a little bit of a back seat to that German Rauch malt, to be honest with you. But above all of that, you do start to get some nice brown sugary character out of this beer. There is a little bit of a slightly dry chocolatey character as well, but yeah, you've got this kind of leathery dry brown sugar in there, a little bit toasty as well actually, and there's a wee touch of a kind of more oily sweetness out of this one too, which I do really like. Yeah, I do like how this one goes together. So yeah, aroma wise, this is very, very nice in that sense. Yeah. So for me, like I say, I do like how that goes together. Yeah, I think that covers everything we really need to say about the malty side of the beer. It is quite complex, but it kind of shows you everything you'd expect. On the hoppy side of things, you've got a nice little bit of kind of earthiness in there. You've got a little bit of herbal character as well. Those are some of the characteristics of English hops. Of course, they are a little bit more herbal and earthy in comparison to their German or Slovenian or Czech counterparts. You do have a little bit of floral character to this one as well, but not too much. And then you've got a kind of smooth grassiness as well. But we have to remember, porters are not the most hop forward of styles. That is something that's quite key to remember with these. But on the fruity side of things, this one's quite interesting because you do have a nice little bit of an oily fig in there. You've got an oily fig in there. You've got a little bit of blackberry, and a wee bit of juicy black currant as well. So yeah, the way that this beer goes together in this one is quite nice. I really do like this. I'm more just very curious to see what it's all about. I love the kind of depth that this one has to it from all the different things. But in honesty, yeah, as I say, it doesn't do anything surprising. It's just a really nice aroma and getting in terms of what you would expect from a porter, especially a smoked porter at that. So as I always say, take a wee bit of time to enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck in. But I think we should try this one now. So yeah, this one is the Rättskaffans Rökporter, a 7% smoked porter from AKiA Brygghus in Kungsbacka and Närke Kulturbryggeri in Örebro. Let's get stuck in. Slange, skål, cheers. So yeah, that is pretty damn good. It has got a nice smoky hit to it, but it's not overly smoky, and it does still show you the kind of classic porter characteristics as well. For me, a porter always had a nice little bit of smoothness but roasty dryness to it, and the beer really does show you that in the aftertaste. But further forward on the palate, it's showing you a nice kind of smoky bill, which I think is great. So this gets a thumbs up for me. Not surprised that both of these breweries have done a nice job on this one. You know, Närke, of course, know very well what they're doing with porters. AKiA are just very solid all round in my experience, and I'm sure we've had a porter from them before. If not, we've had one or two imperial stouts, and they're always very good on the dark side of things too, AKiA. So as I say, not a surprise. So yeah, for me, this is right up my alley though, guys. When I review a beer like this, you have to know I love smoky flavours, so this one obviously was going to be a beer that I would enjoy. And that was one of the main reasons why I got this one, I'm sure. But yeah, let's have a wee look at this one then. We'll just break the beer down and describe it as we always do. So middle third of your palate then, you can feel the backbone of the beer is that roasty, toasty, well-fired bread crusty character. Further forward on the on the middle third of your palate, you get a little bit of a kind of more woody character coming out of this one. But yeah, so you get that nice kind of woody character, and that comes out the further into the aftertaste with this beer. It does come out the further into the aftertaste that we go. So for me, I would say that this beer is it's quite it's quite like I say, it gives you more and more dryness the further into the aftertaste you go. But yeah, above the kind of roasty, well-fired, bread crusty sort of thing, which is obviously the carafa, you do get the layer of rye bread in there, and the rye bread is quite dense, and it's also quite wet, actually, and the smokier characters kind of linger within that. So you get, I think, within the rye bready layer, you get more of the kind of peaty malts coming out of this one, so you get that more woody and kind of, well, not woody, that more kind of earthy and grassy and slightly drier smoke from the peat. So that's sitting there inside the kind of rye bready layer. But above the rye bready layer, you start to get a more kind of wholemeal, brown bready character out of this one. And it's quite fluffy actually, in a sense, like nice fresh German brown bread. But then on top of that, you get the you do get a little bit more of the kind of, within that you get more of the kind of beech smoked character. You get more of the kind of meaty Rauch type character out of the beer. So yeah, you get that little bit of woodiness in there, that little bit of meatiness and stuff like that. And I think, yeah, it does go together pretty well in that sense. So, yeah, I really do like how that, I do really like how that goes together actually. It is very, very nice. The smoky, the rauchy, woody notes that come out of this one are absolutely great. So like I say, that gets a big thumbs up from me as well. And you do get more and more roasty black dryness out of this beer the further into the aftertaste you go too. But yeah, above the brown bready layer, at the back of that middle third of your palate, you do get an almost like slightly charged, chocolatey note out of this one, and it does kind of mellow out a little bit as you come further forward on the middle third of the palate. But then, yeah, you've got a more leathery, brown sugary character there with quite a little bit of dry toastiness. But in the dead centre of your palate, you do have just a tiny little bit of a slightly sweet caramel character with this one. But this beer is mainly, it really is more roasty. And yeah, it is more like roasty, toasty, and dry. Actually, this one, which is quite interesting. So yeah, I like how that goes together. So, yeah, the way that this beer goes together in the middle third of the palate is really quite nice. This was quite a dry and roasty porter overall. I think that covers everything we need to say about the middle third of the palate. Let's go to the back third of the palate then. The border region between middle and back third of the palate in any case, you get a nice little bit of kind of brown bready build up in there, and it's quite, as I say, peaty and smoky and dry and stuff like this. Then you've got the base of that back third of your palate, which has a lovely roasty, toasty, well-fired bread crusty character to it. Again, the layers in the back third of the palate are actually quite similar. It's just, yeah, they are quite similar, as I say. It's just more of a, how would we say that? It is almost a little bit more like a, it just has a little bit more kind of, just different depth and nuances to it. So yeah, you've got that roasty, toasty, well-fired backbone there, and as I've always said, more dry and bitter flavours come out further back on the palate. So this roasty, toasty, dry sort of thing is a lot roastier and drier. Above that, you get the rye bready layer, which feels a little bit lighter and more airy, but again, you get more of the peat smoke out of this, which is actually quite a dry, peaty character, kind of similar to like more, Ardbeg, Lafroig, or Talisker, or something like that. It's what, if I think about these whiskies, the peaty character that you get in this one is more akin to those rather than the sweeter ones such as like Cow Isla and Bowmore and stuff like this. So yeah, you've got that in there. Above that, you've got the more kind of, above that, you have the wholemeal brown bready layer, which again is a lot lighter and taller and more airy, and then you get the more kind of Rauch, malty characters in there as well, the sort of German ones, so you get more woodiness and more meatiness and stuff like this coming out of this one. So yeah. But yeah, I do really like how this pieces together for sure. On the, above that kind of brown bready layer, you can feel a little bit of the kind of charred chocolatey note just kind of creeps on top of that, and then above everything else, you've got a more yeasty character coming out of the beer, and the yeasty note in this one is like a really, it's almost like like a farmhousey rye bread, a bit more cracker, a bit more wood, and a wee bit of honeycomb wrapped in it. I always get a little touch of honeycomb on the back third of the palate for some reason. But yeah, you can feel the yeasty notes sitting above there. But definitely, the back third of your palate, the flavour is definitely taller. And as you come further forward into the middle third of your palate, it just kind of condenses down and squashes together. So yeah, the way that goes together, I think, is very, very nice. And it gets a thumbs up from me. I think that covers the malty and yeasty side of this beer for sure. Let's go on to the hoppy side of things. So, back corners of the palate, absolutely, you've got a nice little bit of earthiness in there. It's got a wee bit of dryness to it, which builds a good bridge with the Carafa malt in this one. And that, of course, will be the East Kent Goldings that's giving you that. As you move further forward, it gives you a little touch of herbal character, which is good. And as you push toward the kind of front corners of the palate, you've got a more kind of floral, aromatic sort of thing coming out of this one, which I think is very nice. So yeah, nice big oily floral aromatic note there, and round the front curve of your tongue, a bit lighter and more oily and grassy for sure. So yeah, I like that about this one. So yeah, on the I think that covers the hoppy side of the beer, to be honest with you. So on the malty, or on the front third of your palate, then the border region between front and middle third of your palate, you get a nice little bit of a kind of bready build up in there. It's kind of rye bready note, a little bit of a toasty character there. The base of that front third of your palate is of course the roasty toasty well-fired bread crust from the carafa. You've got a little bit of the rye bread in there, and above that you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters roll their way out of the beer. So let's look at that fruity side of the beer, and I will point out the fruity character in this beer is not overly strong. It's the smoky side of things that dominates, which is what you'd expect when it's called a Rökporter, smoked porter. So yeah, the fruity side of this beer is quite straightforward in a sense. You've got with this one, you have a really nice kind of, when you take the beer in, you get it's mainly kind of a juicy sort of figgy character that you'll get out of it. Yeah, so when you take the beer in, at the back of that front third of your palate, you get a little bit of a slightly juicy plum, and then underneath you'll feel there's a bit of a kind of figgy character, and then just behind the front tip of the tongue you get a little hint of like a blackcurrant or blackberry or something like this, and a little bit of that juicy fruity character lingers there. It's not an overly dry fruity character with this one, but it does linger there, and then you get the smokiness and the breadiness and things just pushing its way through. So yeah, I do like how that pieces together in this one. I think this is really quite nice actually. So yeah, interesting stuff. Really is quite interesting how all this pieces together actually. Yeah, it's good stuff though, this one. It's quite, with the smokiness in this beer, it really is quite dry and things. What I would say about this one is, because of the smokiness, it's a little bit hard to judge where this beer lies on the sort of porter, Schwarzbier, Tmavi type spectrum, if you like, because flavour profile wise, these styles are all very similar. We explained the technical difference between the porter and the Schwarzbier and the Tmavi earlier. For me, the main difference between the Schwarzbier and the Tmavi would be that the Czech Tmavis tend to be a little bit more bready and yeasty, whereas the German Schwarzbiers tend to be a little bit more crisp, dry and cleaner. But that's a general thing between German and Czech lagers for me. This beer certainly does. I would say that it's either, it does have quite a little bit of Czech Tmavi type smoothness to it, but it's also got, you would also expect this of a porter as well. So yeah, it's just interesting. The reason I say this is because it's brewed using a lager yeast, but usually porters use a slightly colder fermenting. You know, porter yeast, I believe, do ferment at a slightly lower temperature than other yeasts that you would potentially use. So yeah, that's an interesting point about this one. But on this note, I think we can talk about the mouthfeel of this beer. So for me, this one's kind of bottom end of mid-bodied. The carbonation is very, very smooth. The beer has an almost like creamy, silky type mouthfeel to it, which I think really suits it. But there's a lot of dryness in this beer. IBU wise, I wouldn't be surprised if this one is like 60 or 70 IBUs. Quite a bit of it coming from the roastiness of the overall beer, and a bit from the hoppy bitterness as well, which I think is nice. And you also have the the breadiness in this one, I think is really nice too. So in the malt base you've got roastiness and dryness, a nice kind of sweeter breadiness as well, but that's kind of balanced out with the different types of smoke that you've got, a dry sweetness on top and a wee bit of charred chocolate as well, which is interesting. That covers the extent of the malt base, but like I say, you've got a good little bit of hoppy character in this one too. And the fruitiness, it's quite sweet and juicy in the beginning, but of course the smoky notes are what really push their way out of this beer into the aftertaste. And this is quite a dry but still very, very smooth porter beer actually. So yeah, it's quite, the dryness and the smoothness that you have out of this one is what makes me think it has a little bit of Czech Tmavi character, because it does feel quite like yeasty and bready in a sense too. But yeah, we can sit and debate exactly what style this one is all day, whether it's got a bit of Tmavi character or whatever, but yeah, Rökporter, smoked porter, is quite an interesting one. But I'd be very curious to know a little bit more about the fermentation in this, because they have used a German lager yeast in this case. So yeah, the main question should always be, is it a good beer? Would you drink it again? And the answer to both of those questions would be yes in this case. You know, Närke and AKiA have done a very good job of this. So yeah, I think we can leave it at that for this one. This was the Rättskaffans Rökporter, 7% ABV from AKiA Brygghus in Kungsbacka and Närke Kulturbryggeri in Örebro, both of them here in Sweden. So yeah, very much enjoyed this one. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are, both from AKiA and from Närke Kulturbryggeri, and we will no doubt return to these guys again at some point in the very near future. But until then, check out my social media, check out the brewery's social media, and I'll see you guys in the next review. Slàinte, skål, and cheers.